Do you also love to make and to wear handmade beanies using Tunisian crochet or knitting? And do you also live in a windy climate? Because if you do, then you might want to line your hats with some fleece. I live in a very windy place and I like to go out. So when I wear my hats that I made from wool, I feel the wind going through them. So many times I have to add a lining to them. This is a fleece lining and it keeps the wind out, so I don't have to wear my hood over the hat and I can hear what's happening around. So if you want to know how I did this, you can continue watching, find out how to line a crochet hat with some fleece. This is a sewing tutorial, so it is not crocheted on and it's hand sewn using thread. You can also try to do it by machine, but I would not recommend it because of the shape of the object. For other projects, maybe you could use a machine or you can crochet a lining on other types of objects. But for this, it's best to give yourself the half an hour that it takes to sew this lining by hand, and then you can wear your hat for a long time in the windy weather. What you will need to line the hat is the hat, of course, a piece of fabric that you cut to a height that is enough to cover your ears, plus seam allowance on both sides, the top and bottom, plus seam allowance for the seam here that we will make on the inside. You also need thread and a sewing needle. You can also use a bigger needle, but this one is a bit big. Don't use a tapestry needle. In my case, I chose to use some cotton thread, so I will also use the wax from this wax candle to make the thread stronger. And you need a pair of scissors, of course, to cut the fabric and cut the thread. You can just cut the piece of fabric to the dimension that you need, and keep in mind that the crochet fabric is elastic when you do this, and make sure that the piece of fabric measures enough to cover your whole head. So ideally you also want a measuring tape, and first measure your head all around. Mine measures 58 centimeters, so you want a little bit of negative ease when making lining for your hats. In my case, that means that I will make the lining 57 centimeters long, which means that I will have this much seam allowance, which is perfect. This is about 1 centimeter for each half of the fabric. So first things first, the fabric that you choose for your lining. This is fleece from one of those lap blankets that you can buy. Choose the side that you want your head to touch. So in my case, this will be the side that will touch the ears, and this will be the side that will be inside the hat. Usually in fleece they look the same, or if you have a patterned fleece, usually there is a pattern on one side. So choose the pattern to be on the outside, which means that you fold it with the pattern here on the inside, because now we will first make a seam here to close the loop. So pick up some thread, and if you use cotton thread and the wax, if you have a piece of wax, you can use that. This is natural beeswax. And we pass the thread through the wax a few times. It sounds funny. This just ensures that the thread is strong and it will last a long time. Then we make a knot on one end and we thread the other end. And we make a straight seam here. We will make a back stitch here because the seam needs to be strong. We go back through the fabric and forward with the needle through the fabric. You can also do this step with a sewing machine if you have it. I'm just showing you the process up close. Here it is. So you go with the needle behind and come up in the front. If you see that you're veering off to the side, come back. Apparently that's what I did. So if it helps you, you can also add some pins here to keep the fabric in place. This is what the seam looks like on the other side. And I keep veering off to the right, and I don't know why, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Once you reach the end, you can make a few back stitches in one spot. And now don't cut the thread, just push it to the front of the fabric. So this is the seam, this is the other side of the seam, and it's quite a strong one. And now we leave the fabric as it was, inside out, and we shove it into the hat. You want to leave a bit of the fabric outside because we will fold this inside, and then we will seam on the edge of the inside of the hat like this, all around. If you want to, you can align the seams with something else. For example, if you have a seam like in this sideways beanie, there is a seam somewhere here. If this seam is in the center of the back, then you have the seam aligned with it. Or you can move it a bit to the side so that they don't overlap. Now you can tack this in place. And then use the pins to pin this down inside, starting on the opposite side. And then midway, and then on the other side. And if you need to, you can add more pins at the midway point between these. And now we can start seaming. And I like to go in this direction. So what we do is go through the fabric, go inside the lining fabric, and then through to the side, go through the fabric of the hat, and then come up. And then again we go inside the fabric, through the fabric of the hat, to the side and up. This is a kind of slip stitch that catches the lining just in very small stitches, so it's not so visible. You can do it as often as you like. Ideally every few millimeters. And when you reach the pins, you can take them out. On the front of the hat you will not see the thread, so even if you don't use matching thread like I am here for demonstration purposes, the thread that you use for lining will not be visible. Except in very, very small bits. When your thread runs out, make a few back stitches on the spot. I also like to go back a bit through the fabric and then snip it and prepare a new thread and attach it and continue seaming around. And I will see you when I get back to this spot. Once you reach back to the beginning, just tie off the thread. And set it aside for now because we need to prepare the other end of the lining. You can do this inside out, makes it easier. All you have to do is fold the edge over inside and then pin. I like to do this on opposite sides first, just like before. And here you can decide how stretched you want this to be. Just try to go for straight fabric. Don't try to stretch it out too much, because then the hat will scrunch up on your head. And if it's too low, then the hat will have to stretch to accommodate that. So try to get the fabric to lay flat. And just go around putting pins in. I guess I lost a pin. So now we start again with the same thread. And I like to work like this. in this direction. Attach the thread with a knot on it from underneath the fabric. Come up and take a little stitch here and go forward. And you can come up again through the fabric. This makes it faster. And always make sure that the needle doesn't reach to the front of the hat, and you do that by feeling with your finger. So if the needle touches your finger, you know that you went too far. So come back a bit and out through the fabric. Don't pull too hard on this thread, and if you want to, you can secure it once in a while with a few of these stitches, simple stitches, just like this, so that the thread doesn't travel. And you go like this all around. Now you can see that the lining is sewed inside the hat, and you can't even see it from the outside, but from now on my ears will be toasty warm in the wind. If you don't live in a windy place, then you don't need to do this, but if you do live in somewhere windy, then I recommend that you add lining to your hats, because it will make your life so much better. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to make one of these hats, check out the free pattern on my blog and the tutorial here on the channel. And if you want to find out how to line other objects, I will make some more tutorials in the future, and you will find them here on this channel. So make sure you subscribe if you want to know when those get published, or if you want to see when I publish new tutorials. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!